Hi friend, welcome to Parenting A to Z. I'm Kelly Bourne, and this week we're diving into that age-old question, to quit or not to quit. How to deal when your kids want to drop out of their extracurricular activities. So we're going to take a look at why our kids want to quit, how to deal, and then a few things to keep in mind before signing your kids up for these activities to set them up for success. Oh man, it can be so hard, can't it? When our kids have been really gung-ho for these activities, we've signed them up, and then for whatever reason, they're wanting to put on the brakes, maybe even stepping back from it entirely. It can be hard as a parent because on the one hand, it's like we don't want to raise a quitter. We don't want them to be dropping out of everything. We want them to develop that sense of sticking to what they commit to. But on the other hand, we don't want to force them or be pushy or sending them in a direction where they don't really want to be going. So today I've got a few things just to keep in mind as you're listening to your kids and following your gut feeling as to what to do, because it's one of those things where I so wish I had like an easy button for you and it was just as simple as, well, if they sign up, they complete all the lessons, because it's not really that easy and it's not really that simple. So first and foremost, something to really keep in mind really in all situations is to really allow your kids' motivation to take the lead. Because I think sometimes as parents, not sometimes, but a lot of the times, we can kind of push our kids to follow maybe what our interests were as kids. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all, exposing them to a wide variety of activities. But it's just keeping in the back of our mind what our motivation is. Are we trying to live vicariously through our kids? How much pressure are we putting on our kids? Is there that sense of feeling like, okay, this was mom's thing, so I really need to be awesome at figure skating? Are we subconsciously kind of doing that? Or are we taking the lens of, here's what it is, what do you think? And kind of leaving it in their hands. So that's something always to keep in mind, whether it's in academics or extracurriculars or starting their new job or volunteer activities, is really allowing them to take the lead, because that's where that sense of motivation, that's where that sense of perseverance will eventually come. It's when they already have that internal interest themselves. And then the second thing that kind of goes along with that is just recognizing for ourselves that forcing our kids will never make them enjoy it. Whether it's forcing them in the first place, trying to get them to do an activity that they've told us, like, I don't want to do ball hockey, mom. Like, why are you signing me up for this? Same thing as when they're in the activity. If they maybe did want to sign up for an activity and now they're not so sure about it, trying to force them and just like steamroll them, because we can do that sometimes, right? Like just force it and push it and try to go that way, get a little bit heavy-handed. That's not gonna create a love of the game or the love of the sport or the love of the musical instrument or whatever it is. So I think it's also just remembering that for ourselves, that forcing and pushing is only going to breed stress and anxiety and eventually resentment. So you get the opposite of what you were trying to achieve in the first place. Because if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing at something and they feel like you're not listening, eventually they'll just start to throw up walls and want absolutely nothing to do with whatever it is you were trying to introduce, of course, with the best intentions. So you can never win a love of sport through force. You just can't. So for me, it's always just a ticket to kind of to step back and allow their interests to take the lead. So as you're keeping those two things in mind, wanting to focus on where they're motivated and not forcing them into anything, another great strategy is to sample. I feel like I don't know what it is, honestly, because I feel like it wasn't like this when I was a kid. I know I'm totally turning into one of those people that talks about when I was a kid, but I feel like there wasn't this sense of hyper commitment, and that if you're going to play hockey, you have to start when you're 3 and you have to play it all year long and you have to be in all these leagues. Like, I feel like there was more breathing room to sample different activities and not this huge sense of commitment, even on the level of individual sports, having like 2 practices and 3 games, like from these really, really early ages. So if your kids are showing interest of something, try to take the mindset of sampling before you commit, because you can go and you can play soccer with your 4-year-olds out on the field on your own time to really see if there is an interest there, rather than signing up for a rep league where they're going in tournaments. Because there is nothing that will squash that internal motivation more than throwing your kids off the deep end headlong into a competitive sport that they were just kind of trying to test the waters in. So sampling, having that mindset of sampling, especially with our younger kids, but it can be with our older kids too. If our 12 and 13-year-olds suddenly start showing an interest in clarinet or whatever, it really could literally be anything. Instead of seeing, oh my gosh, she's interested in something, let's sign her up for this and sign her up for this, just allow her some breathing space to sample and play around at home. And because that's when you'll start to see when your daughter's playing guitar for 3 hours every day after school on her own, just allow her that space, and it'll progress naturally. I know it can be hard when you see that they're interested in something to want to really give them all the opportunities, but sometimes overcommitting can turn play into work. Maybe your daughter is just happy playing guitar on her own in her room on her own time. That's okay. She doesn't need to sign up for competitive lessons and go in competitions and all that jazz. If she wants to do that eventually, she'll tell you, leave the door open, but just go slow and try to avoid the curse of overcommitting. And if you find that your kids do get to the point where they want to start being more competitive, they want to start trying out playing in leagues, want to try out for the band or the competitive cheer team or whatever it is, try not, and I know this can be so hard because we want to give our kids everything. We want to give them all the opportunities we can. Try not to sign them up for anything if you are going to be really upset if you lose the registration fee. Try to tailor your activities, and this is everyone, of course, like you do your own thing, but it's something that we keep in mind for ourselves because our kids, they're still little. We don't know how involved they're going to want to be in things. Whenever we sign them up for something, we do it fully knowing that they may not love it. It may not be for them at all, and we may need to back off a bit. So if we're going to be upset about the registration fee, we won't sign them up for it. If we think it's too much, or if we think it's going to cause us stress, and if we feel like it may force us to kind of push them to continue just because we forked out the money, we won't sign them up for it. So that's a sign for us where we can just, take them scootering at the scooter park, or we can do whatever the activity it is on our own time. Or for even the older kids, that's a great opportunity for them to start saving up for their own registration fees. Heck, I remember in the Olympics, a story of one of our Canadian snowboarders. His parents didn't want him to snowboard, so he had to work and he had to get the money to get his own snowboard, and that's a perfect example right there of following your kids' motivation, because when they're motivated, they'll find a way to make it happen. No forcing or anything on your end. They'll take the lead and just run with it. And then as you're taking that next step, also before you sign on the dotted line and hand over the registration fee, talk to your kids about the commitment required. Is this just a short 3-week thing, or is this something that they're committing to for 6 months, and giving them an idea of what they are signing up for? So if they are going to be having something every Saturday morning all winter long, that they know what that's going to look like, and they know that, okay, by saying yes to this, I'm also going to be saying no to that. So have all of those conversations well in advance. Another really big thing to do is to take a look at the big picture, because I think sometimes as parents, we can get so focused on wanting to provide our kids with all these opportunities, we start to drown in them. And things start to get a little bit heavy when suddenly we realize, okay, we've got to be in 18 different places every Tuesday night for the next 6 months, and oh my God, what did I sign myself up for? So as you're starting to look at registrations and commitments and signing everything up, look at the big picture for everything. Look at what you've got going on in your own life as far as your work schedule, your social schedule, your kids' academic schedule, all of that, taking all of it into account and creating something that works well for all of you. Nothing will kill motivation quicker than overwhelm. So keep that big picture in mind. And then finally, the last thing I guess I'll leave with you before you go, I guess, is the final to quit or not to quit question. If you've prepared yourself, you feel like you're following your kids' lead, you're registering them in things that are appropriate for their developmental ability and where they're at, and it fits in with the whole family scheme and everything's going well, and they still want to quit, I feel like quitting is just part of the trial and error of figuring out who you are and what you enjoy and where you want to focus and where you don't. Because I think sometimes we can put so much focus on the commitment piece that we forget that sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes, you know what, maybe I thought this was for me, but it's not. And by allowing yourself the space to step back and say, you know what, that's not for me, or you know what, he doesn't have the attention span for baseball right now, and step out of that, it creates so much more space for you and your kids to do something else, creating a new opportunity, opening up more time for them to play at the park, opening more time for them to play with their friends, whatever it is. You're creating that space instead of trying to force your child who has no attention span to sit through another 8 weeks of baseball when it's driving everyone crazy, especially them, and stressing them out. Step back, just step back. You know what? These extracurriculars that we sign our kids up for, they shouldn't be a life sentence. They shouldn't feel like a life sentence. So if your kids want to back off, step away, I say, heck, childhood is too short. Childhood is too short. Now, of course, next time, starting the process all over again and signing up for the registration fee and talking about commitment, doing all that prep ahead of time, maybe getting them to raise money to have their own registration fee. So if it's not for them, you're not the one out of pocket. But at the end of the day, if you've tried everything, if you're prepared, I say create space and allow them an opportunity to follow a different interest. Of course, those are just my 2 cents. I'd absolutely love to hear from you. Leave your questions or comments down below. If you're looking for any more in-depth parenting resources and support, don't forget to check us out in the Parenthood. We'd absolutely love to have you. So I wish you so much luck in signing your kids up for those extracurriculars. I know it can be so hard when things aren't going how you thought they'd go, but heck, that's just life. That's just life, and it doesn't mean you have a bad kid. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent. Sometimes it just means there's a mismatch, and that's okay. That's okay. Life's too short. I'll see you in the next vid.